He had just minutes before the cold would claim his hands. No lighter, no matches, no help, just a pile of frozen twigs. A man looked around frantically for anything that could help him, but there was nothing. At least he spotted a nearby rock monolith. It was rough, jagged, and his last resort. With one final glance at the dying fire, he started striking the rock. He struck over and over, his movements becoming more desperate, his breathing more shallow. Was it worth it? Would it work? Or would this be his end? Before matches, before lighters, before butane or spark wheels, our ancestors were forced to create fire with nothing but instinct, patience, and raw survival knowledge. And in many cases, they did it faster than most of us could today, even with gear in our hands. This is the story of Karin, a nomadic hunter from the Ural Mountains. One night, separated from his group and caught in an unexpected snowstorm, he faced the oldest, coldest enemy on Earth: exposure. The wind was brutal, his fingers were numb, the sun had vanished behind thick clouds. And as temperatures dropped, he had a choice: build fire fast, or die slow. In nature, death comes in two forms: sudden and inevitable. Either a quick death by starvation, exposure, or some other immediate cause, or a slow death from injury or illness. For hunters like Karin, there was no quality of life worth living on a night like this. Death by exposure was terrible, but death by starvation or exposure to the elements after a failed hunt would be worse. Karin needed to get a fire going, and fast. His best option was a small cluster of snow-laden pine branches about 10 feet away. He knew he wouldn't be able to carry them back to his camp, so he'd have to make a small fire pit directly where the branches stood. Underneath them, wedged between stones, he spotted a collection of dry twigs. If he could break them free, he might have enough tinder to catch a spark. But they were stuck fast in the icy ground. He'd need a sharp instrument to dig them out, something hard and thin like a shard of flint. Karin was a hunter. He carried a knife, but it was made of soft iron. At these temperatures, it would become brittle and snap rather than slice. But he did have another option: a hard flint stone, about 3 inches long, wedged securely in his quiver of arrows. Dropping to his knees, Karin reached for the frozen twigs, praying that his fingers hadn't lost all feeling yet. When he touched the first twig, a jolt of pain shot up his arm. But he kept hold and began to scrape at the ice. It took nearly a minute, but finally, with a cracking sound, he freed the first twig. One by one, he worked each side of the frozen clump until he pried them free. Grasping them all in one hand, he felt a surge of triumph, quickly followed by dread. He now had to keep them dry. Rain or snow falling onto wet tinder could extinguish a fire before it ever started, so he reached back into his quiver for the flattest arrow he could find. Placing the twigs against the smooth shaft, he tied them in place with sinew. The result was far from perfect, but it would have to do. He now needed to create friction. Flint and steel, fire plow, bamboo, and fire saw. These were techniques Karin had practiced since childhood. But he was alone, and none of those methods would work without assistance. His only option was to use the bow drill. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the rising panic inside him. First, he needed a socket, a hole to house the spindle, the stick that would create friction. He picked out a sturdy branch with a knot near its base, broke off a section, laid it down, and began to carve out the socket with the sharp edge of his arrowhead. The work was tedious and dangerous. Each thrust of the knife risked slipping and piercing his hand. But as the opening grew larger, so did his hope. Placing the socket in position, he tested the fit with the spindle. It was too loose. He scraped away more wood until the socket was snug. Then, bracing the base with a stone, he carved out a notch for the string to run through. Finally, he was ready. With shaking hands, he placed the bundle of twigs near the base of the socket and began to wrap a length of deer hide sinew around the spindle. As he pulled it tight, he envisioned the fibers as taut strings on a musical instrument. It was an odd comfort in the face of such desperate work. Now came the hard part. He had to spin. Not fast, not strong, but steady. A good bow drill fire takes time, patience, and an understanding of balance. It's easy to tire yourself out too quickly and fail. But with every turn, Karin felt his fear recede, replaced by focus. The world shrank until it was just him, the storm, and the fire he was determined to make. Within a minute, the tip of the spindle began to smoke. Another minute passed, the smoke grew thicker. Then suddenly, with a snap, a shower of sparks erupted from the socket. Charon froze, holding his breath. The sparks drifted upward, glowing embers tumbling through the air before disappearing into the darkness. Now, the test. Could he breathe life into it? Holding it gently like it was alive, he shielded the ember with his body, cupped it with his hands, and blew gently. One breath, two. It glowed, then flickered out. Failure, but he didn't stop. Trying again, he changed the angle, tucked the ember deeper into the bark, and protected it with his hand. His breath was slower, controlled, almost imperceptible. It felt like forever, but it was probably only seconds. He exhaled, then inhaled sharply, the smell of wood smoke filling his nostrils. The bark burst into flame, and the fire crackled to life. It took Charon less than 4 minutes to build that fire. 4 minutes to tame the wilderness and conquer the night. Compare that to the average camper who uses a lighter, and it would take 10 times as long. But Charon's story isn't magic, it's memory. Generations of hunters like Charon recorded their knowledge of plants, animals, weather, tools, and techniques. They passed down the tricks and techniques to survive the harshest winters with the fewest supplies. Techniques that are still being rediscovered today by those brave enough to step outside and explore. And in the process, we found that they were much closer to the world they lived in than we could ever be. In the story of Charon, the lonely hunter, we see a snapshot of the ingenuity and resourcefulness of our ancestors. Faced with the daunting task of building a fire in sub-zero temperatures with nothing but a pile of frozen twigs and a piece of stone, Charon's story shows us the power of human adaptation and survival instincts. The harsh conditions of the Ural Mountains serve as a reminder of the extreme environments that humans have had to endure throughout history. And Charon's determination to stay alive is a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit. Using nothing but his wit and knowledge of his surroundings, Charon is able to create a fire that would take most modern campers equipped with gear 10 times as long. This story is a reminder that we should never underestimate the power of human ingenuity and the importance of preserving traditional knowledge and skills. The techniques that Charon used to build his fire are part of a rich heritage that has been passed down from generation to generation. And by learning about and practicing these techniques, we can connect with our ancestors and gain a deeper appreciation for their way of life. It also serves as a warning of the dangers of relying solely on modern conveniences. As we continue to move further away from the natural world, it is important to remember that we are part of nature, not separate from it. And by losing our connection to the natural world, we have become more vulnerable to the challenges that it throws our way. As we reflect on the story of Charon, let us be inspired by his courage and determination. And let us also be humbled by the power of the natural world and the importance of respecting it. Let us remember that we are not masters of nature, but simply part of it. And by learning to live in harmony with nature, we can ensure our own survival and well-being, and that of generations to come. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, or if you want to learn how to build fire the way they did, hit that subscribe button, because we don't just tell history, we bring it back to life. Now check out this video on how to build a fire without any equipment. And always remember, stay warm.